Today I'd like to open with a very basic traditional scripture. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 16, because it is one of those times of the year, that season. And in Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16 it says, 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the eternal your God in the place which he chooses. You could go into that. It's a place where God places his name, where his name is being proclaimed and followed, revered, respected, and taught. So, in the place where he chooses to, at the Feast of Matzah, the Festival of Unleavened Bread, as today, at the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, and at the Feast of Booths, and they shall not appear before the Eternal empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessings of the Eternal your God, which he has given you. And again, back in Exodus chapter 23, Exodus 23 and verse 14, it says, 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days, as I commanded you. Notice it doesn't say, if you eat bread, it should be unleavened. It says, you shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. As a matter of fact, eating unleavened bread is more important than putting the leavening out of your homes. And you'll find if you go through the instructions regarding unleavened bread, that is the first instruction given, and it is the instruction that is given more often. It's predominant over the instruction to put the leavening out, because eating unleavened bread represents eating Messiah. Remember, Messiah said, you shall eat my flesh and drink my blood. We need Messiah in order to put the leavening out. It's just the way it is. It's getting the cart before the horse. If you try to put the leavening out without the help of Yeshua, then you are at a huge disadvantage, and you will not succeed, or at least not anywhere nearly as well as if you first eat unleavened bread. That is, first bringing God into your life. So you shall eat unleavened bread. Exodus 23 and verse 14. And verse 15, you shall keep the feast of Matzah. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Aviv. For in it you came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty. So this is the time when we come and bring our offerings before the Eternal. Back in Genesis, we see something that's kind of interesting. It's a little bit related in Genesis chapter 14 concerning our father, Abraham. Genesis 14 and verse 16, it says, so he brought back all the gods. Also he brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. This is when Abraham went out to protect and rescue Lot, to bring back Lot. In the process of doing battle with the kings, he ended up with some loot. He brought some treasure with him that he captured in the battle. He should not have done that. He should have left it there and then gone back and rebuilt their schools and hospitals. I'm sorry. That was, anyway. Sometimes I can't help myself, I guess. Anyway, he brought back some treasure with him, and all the goods, and he brought back his brother Lot, verse 16, and his goods, as well as the women and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Shavah, that is, the king's valley, after his return from the defeat. And Melchizedek, verse 18, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of the Most High God, and he blessed him. And he said, blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High who has delivered the enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tithe of all. So I wonder, if we think about it, which of us would have, I don't know, if you were in a battle with someone and you conquered something, or you took something, or you were in a dispute and you ended up going to court with somebody. Maybe that's a way that we could kind of relate. And you end up going to court, and then the judge awarded you a damage award beyond getting back your lost property. I wonder How many of us would tithe on that? Just something to ponder. Well, Melchizedek himself brought bread. It would have been unleavened bread, and vino, the wine, and they blessed with it. They blessed God. They didn't bless the wine. They didn't bless the bread. They used the wine to worship and to bless God, and they blessed God. And Abraham gave a tithe of all. It's just something that God has wanted to teach his people. When we're coming before a king, you know, we are told to honor him with the best that we have. He wants the first fruits. He doesn't like to play second fiddle. He does not play second fiddle. He likes to be revered. He likes to be respected. And he wants us to learn to be like he is. He wants the poor to learn to be like he is. He wants the rich to learn to be like he is. And that is what it's all about, so that we would learn that our sustenance does not come from our own works, from our own hands, from our own ingenuity. Of course we're supposed to work, and of course we should try to think and do the best that we can. But you know what? God is the one who determines the outcome of the race. God is the one who blesses what you do or does not bless what you do. You can work and it can bring forth thistles and weeds, or you can work and it can be blessed abundantly and you can have abundance. But it all starts with learning that God is first in our lives. And that's one of the things he wants to remind us during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, during the Festival of Matzah, at the Passover season, when we also take bread and wine and we bless the Most High. That if this is a time, it is a season to look to God and realize he is the one, blessed be he, and we will give to him an offering. It is what he has commanded. It is right and it is just. And no one should feel ashamed about saying, hey, you know, it's the offering day today. This is God's day, and this is what he says to do. It is the right way. It is the right thing. In Mark chapter 12, in verse 41, until we'll go forward into the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, Brit Covenant, New Covenant, Mark chapter 12, and verse 41. It says, now Yeshua sat opposite the treasury and saw how the people put money into the treasury. You know, it's kind of interesting that Messiah sat opposite so that he could see. He sat there and just watched. He pondered and watched, and he saw how everybody was putting their money into the treasury. And many rich people put in much. And you know what? That's good. That was a good thing. But one poor widow came and threw in 2 mites, which make quadrants. So that would be a small copper coin. It meant literally a very small copper coin. In other words, we have little copper coins today. We call them a penny. So it's our little copper coin. I don't know if it was a penny, equivalent of a penny, or if maybe it was more like a dime. Maybe it was a quarter. Maybe she put in 2 bits. Maybe it was 50 cents. Maybe it was 2 cents. I don't know. I only know that that's how much she put in was very, very small. Certainly it would not be delineated in terms of dollars. It was a very small copper coin, the smallest of the copper coins. And she could not live on that. If she would have kept it and said, oh, I'm poor, I need to keep this, you know, let the wealthy give, and the poor people can just keep what they have. That seems like a very, well, I want to say democratic, but it's not really the right word. It just seems, you know, naturally to the human mind, a very liberal way of thinking, like that would be right, you know, let the wealthy people give, and let this poor widow not have to give her little copper coin or 2 copper coins. But you know why? Why would you want to deny her that blessing? Because Messiah was teaching a new way to live, a different way to live. And Messiah himself said, it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. And so she would be prevented from that blessing, prevented from practicing godliness, prevented from acting like God, prevented from being able to be blessed by doing this. If somebody would say, no, 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 you keep that. How shameful that would be. Oh, it seems so right to a human being, and it seems like the right thing to do. And democracies, you know, they do like to take from the wealthy and give to the poor, and it just seems like the right thing. How shameful it is to think that you can outdo God. God wanted that woman. He didn't go up to her and say, poor woman, you don't need to give. Just let the wealthy people practice godliness. Rather, he used her as an example that even the poor widow, by the way that she gave, not by the volume, how much she gave, but the heart with which she gave, made her example more precious and more special than that of the wealthy. Because she gave of her heart, she gave percentage-wise a far greater percentage of her wealth. And she knew, because you can't live on a small copper coin. So nobody's asking you to give. In order to give like her, you'd have to give everything you had got, right? That is not what God's asking. But the point is, she lived on God. She lived by her faith, by her trusting. And through her obedience to God and her humility. And you know what? That poor widow, I just do not believe for a moment that she starved to death after that. I believe that God blessed her and provided for her all her days. And to this day she's provided for in the comfort of the eternal. It is more blessed to give. We are called to live a new way of life. There are books on how to get rich. They would not agree with this principle. We are called to follow God and to learn to think differently. So Messiah used her example. I say to you, this widow has put in more than all those. Yes, and so it is remembered as a testimony. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, we're reminded of something by the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was a little frustrated dealing with the church of Corinth because they were a greedy church. They tried to keep all of their money for themselves. They wanted Paul to work and build tents and try to market them and sell them and do all that he did, but yet, of course, don't diminish your service to the church. That was the way that they were. They were a selfish, greedy church. And so Paul was saying, look, we have starving brethren. They're hungry Jews in Jerusalem. You know, they're the ones who started this and provided this and kind of got this going so that we could serve you, the Gentiles. And now we need to take a little bit and give back to them because there's some starving brethren in Jerusalem. And he wanted to bring a gift. And so he went to each of the churches and said, hey, you know, let's put together an offering and we'll take it to Jerusalem for your hungry brethren over there. And the church of Corinth said, oh yeah, okay, we'll do it. But then they didn't do it. And here, like, what was it, a year or two later, they still hadn't done it. They were just talking about it. And so then he comes back to them with a second letter and says, look, I'll send somebody. You guys send the money however you want. It doesn't even have to come into my hands. But those who sow bountifully, well, God will bless them and they will reap bountifully. So let's read the account in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 5. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 5, he says, therefore I thought it necessary. Can you imagine? He felt it was necessary to exhort the brethren to go ahead of time and prepare your bountiful gift beforehand, which you had previously promised, that it may be ready as a matter of generosity and not as a grudging obligation. But this I say, He who sows sparingly, he who sows with a grudging attitude, he who sows out of obligation, he who sows sparingly. Now, did that widow sow sparingly? Well, all she did was put in 2 little copper coins. Well, it was very bountiful. It was from a bountiful heart. It wasn't the volume, it was the attitude. He who sows sparingly will reap sparingly. That means that's how you'll be blessed. God will be very sparing with you as he provides your job opportunities, your income opportunities, your retirement opportunities, the house you get to live in, the healings you get. I don't know what other blessings there might be that God would bountifully or sparingly bless us with. So each one, as he purposes in his heart, should give. And the heart is the important thing, not grudgingly and not out of a necessity, though it is a necessity. It is a command to give on this day, but God wants you to do it as a cheerful thing, to love to give, to love to serve, to love to help, cheerfully. Because he goes on, verse 8, God is able to make all grace abound toward you, so that you always having all sufficiency in all things have an abundance for every good work. Well, now that's interesting. You would have an abundance so that you would have the ability to do a good work. An abundance for every good work. Not so that you would have abundance so that you could fill your extra barn up, but that you would have an abundance that God would provide. It's like water flows in, water flows out. Blessings, you want blessings to flow through you? Be a blessing to others. Be a blessing to others, and it will attract blessings to you. And then they will flow through you like water. But if you try to become a reservoir and keep them for yourself, the flow stops. It's counter to carnality. It's counter to the way the carnal mind wants to think about it. But God will bless you. And so abundant people that have abundance, like, well, you know, in the old days we would think of Carnegie, but now we think of Warren Buffett. What a generous man. And so he is so generous that God just makes him the richest man in the world, so that he has more to give. It is a law. You will reap what you sow. It's a statute. It's a judgment of God. God is able to make us grace abound towards us, so that we would always be sufficient in all things, and we would have an abundance so that we can do good works. As it is written, he has dispersed abroad and given to the poor. He has. I've been poor. I've been very, very poor. God always provided for me. He always has. Now may he who supplies seed to the sower, may he who supplies bread for food. You know, we're going to eat. We're going to have a nice meal after services today. Thank you for that, God. Thank you for the blessing of the food that we will partake of after the service today. We thank you for that. May he supply seed and bread and wine and abundance and fellowship and joy. And may he multiply the seed that each of us sow today as we give an offering, and increase the fruits of our righteousness, where we are enriched in everything because of our liberal giving, which causes thanksgiving through us. People can be thankful for things that we do. That is a godly thing. And it's all through God, because God is the one who institutes this system of giving. Praise Yah for your kindness and your wisdom in teaching us how to be like you. And so we have the offering box out today. Just remind you that it is the day to give, and it is a time to give through this whole feast all week long during the Festival of Matzah. 3 times in the year, you shall not appear empty before the eternal, your loving, giving God. Amen.